Hi and welcome to Steps to Strides and this explainer video with me, Connor Ratcliffe, musculoskeletal specialist podiatrist and senior lecturer. Through the marvels of modern technology, I've somewhat overcome some of my video editing and creation ineptitudes and made videos covering some key concepts for musculoskeletal management of the lower limb. It's drawn from both my experience and the evidence base. As always, no single source is entirely comprehensive and wider reading is encouraged, as there's always nuance in differing scenarios and presentations, which is where your clinical reasoning is key, because it's to not just know stuff, but be able to apply said stuff in a relevant way. Anyway, hopefully you're going to enjoy these videos and the often chirpier and slightly less verbose than me voiceovers within them. So thanks for watching. Enjoy.
You know, when we're prescribing lower limb exercises, it's so easy to fall into that simple trap of just make it stronger. But what if that's not always the right move, especially at the beginning? Today, we're going to dig into a much more nuanced and, frankly, a much more effective framework for helping our patients. So let's just kick things off with a really fundamental question. When you sit down to write an exercise program, is your only goal to build muscle strength? I mean, for a lot of us, that's kind of the default setting, right? But what if I told you that in so many cases, especially with patients who are actively in pain, that's not the most important or even the most effective thing to be chasing first?
And this is where it really clicks. When you're managing a patient with an active pathology, someone who's dealing with pain right now, your main goal might need to be something completely different before you can even start to think about building pure strength. So it's clear we need to broaden our view. Just having this singular focus on strength, it just isn't enough. If we really want to expand our clinical toolkit, we've got to be crystal clear about the why behind every single exercise we prescribe. So here's our game plan. We're going to break down exercise prescription into 4 really distinct therapeutic aims. First, building capacity and growth. Second, increasing tolerance. Third, directly reducing pain. And finally, number 4, repatterning movement. Okay, let's jump in with the one we're all probably the most familiar with, increasing capacity and kicking off tissue growth. But, and this is a big but, while we often use these concepts interchangeably, it is absolutely vital to understand that they're actually quite different things.
First up, let's just define strength. In its purest form, we're talking about the maximum force a muscle can generate in a single go. You know, your classic 1 rep max. Simple as that. Capacity, though, that's a broader idea. It's not just about that one maximal effort. It's about how much work you can actually do over a period of time. Think of it like strength plus endurance. It's the difference between a 1 rep max squat and how many bodyweight squats you can do before you're gassed. And then we have hypertrophy. Now this is the actual physical growth of the muscle or the tendon tissue. It's a true biological adaptation to stress, a real change in the tissue itself. Now here's what's so fascinating on this slide. Look at the time frame. Those early gains you see in strength or capacity, the ones that happen in just a few weeks, that's primarily your brain getting better at its job. It's improved neural drive, your brain getting more efficient at recruiting the muscle fibers you already have. Actual hypertrophy, that real tissue change, is way slower. We're talking 6 to 8 weeks, maybe even more. So when your patient doubles their reps in 3 weeks, that's a huge neural win, but it's not new muscle yet. All right, let's shift gears to our second aim. And honestly, for our patients in pain, this one is a game changer, increasing their tolerance to movement. This is all about desensitization, about changing their brain's perception of what they're safely able to do.
And here's the clinical reality we see all the time, right? You can't possibly get to the intensity you need for hypertrophy if the movement itself is just too painful. A patient's lack of tolerance is a giant roadblock. So our first job is often just to clear that block by building up their tolerance, bit by bit.
This quote just nails the mindset we need to have. Seriously, make this your mantra for this whole phase of rehab. The goal is to teach the nervous system that movement can be safe again, all without provoking that painful response. So how do we actually do that? Well, we play with the variables. We might use no resistance at all, or maybe just body weight, or even partial body weight. We can shrink the range of motion. The absolute key here is to keep any pain at or below the patient's existing baseline.
We are building confidence in movement, not just muscle. So for our third therapeutic aim, we're using exercise specifically for its pain-relieving or analgesic effect. The primary goal of the movement here isn't strength, it's not even tolerance, it's just immediate pain reduction. And the way this works is pretty cool, actually. The right kind of low-load exercise can trigger the release of our body's own natural pain relievers. And this doesn't just work locally. It helps dial down the perception of pain both at the injury site and within the central nervous system. And we can be really targeted with this. We could use a low-load isometric contraction to hit a very specific painful structure. Or we can go broad. We can prescribe something general, like a walk or swim, not to target one muscle, but to get a systemic, feel-good, overall reduction in pain. Okay, on to our final aim. And this one can be a little more complex, but wow, is it rewarding when you get it right. Repatterning movement. This is all about correcting faulty neuromuscular recruitment patterns. What we see so often in the clinic is this pattern of, well, you could call it synergistic dominance or substitution. Basically, one muscle is working way too hard, doing its own job and the job of its neighbors. And that chronic overuse can be the real driver of a patient's pain, no matter how active or inactive they are otherwise. Now this is a fantastic clinical pearl. That painful, overworking muscle, it might actually test as really strong during a manual muscle test. And you might think, well, why is that? It's because it's become so over-reliant. It's compensating for all the other muscles that are slacking off. That strength can actually be a huge diagnostic clue that you got a repatterning problem on your hands. And this slide gives us a perfect real-world example. Let's say your goal is to get the patient to lift their foot up, dorsiflexion, using only their tibialis anterior. But what you see them do instead is cheat. They fire up their long toe extensors to help out. Our job, with really specific cues and feedback, is to correct that pattern and teach them how to isolate the muscle we actually want working. Okay, so we've walked through these 4 very distinct aims. Let's pull it all together now and see how this really expands your therapeutic toolkit. And here they are, all laid out. These are the 4 primary lenses you can look through when you prescribe any exercise. Now, they're not mutually exclusive, of course, but consciously choosing your primary aim for each stage of rehab, that is absolutely key. And really, this is the ultimate takeaway. When you move beyond just thinking strength and you adopt this aim-oriented approach, your clinical reasoning just gets sharper. Your exercise prescriptions become way more precise, and at the end of the day, your patient care becomes so much more effective. So, I'll just leave you with this question to mull over. The next time you see a patient with a lower limb injury walk through your door, which of these 4 aims is going to be your top priority? Thinking this way, I promise, will fundamentally change how you approach rehabilitation.